and gentlemen, on behalf of the Merdeka Award Trust, I am truly delighted to welcome every one of you to the second edition of the Merdeka Award Talk Series this year. Today's discussion, entitled What My Mentor and Leaders Never Told Me, leading through twists, trials, and triumphs, will discuss how these distinguished leaders are guiding and mentoring emerging talents, providing them with invaluable lessons on navigating their path to success. I am honored to invite the Secretary of Merdeka Award Trust, Ms. Karina Fauzi, to deliver the opening speech and officially begin our event. Please welcome Ms. Karina Fauzi.
Dato Kamarul, Muhamed, founder and CEO of Aerodyne. Kuhan Pathy, founder of Paper Labs, social enterprise and staff well engineering from Petronas. Izzana Salleh, founder of Girls for Girls project. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. On behalf of the Merdeka Award Trust, I warmly welcome you to the second edition of the Merdeka Award Talk Series for 2024. We are thrilled to have you join us today as we explore the journeys of Malaysian leaders and discuss how their successes can inspire the next generation to thrive in their own path. Before we start today's Merdeka Award Talk Series on what my mentor and leaders never told me, leading through twists, trials, and triumphs, let me take a moment to share a brief background about the Trust. The Trust was founded by Petronas and Shell back in 2007 to reward individuals and organizations who have made outstanding contributions in their respective fields to the people of Malaysia. The Trust celebrates the achievements and significant contributions of individuals and organizations to Malaysia and the people within their respective fields. It explores the liberation of the mind and spirit, the strength of character and integrity that underpins meaningful achievements, and the creativity and vision that enables greatness. To continuously foster excellence among Malaysians, the Trust established two signature programs, namely the Merdeka Award and the Merdeka Award Grant for International Attachment. Last year, we introduced the Talk Series in collaboration with Astro Awani as a platform for concise and engaging content discourse to inspire more Malaysians in our effort to foster a culture of excellence. The Talk Series aims to connect a community of leaders who inspire others by highlighting their resilience, adaptability, and creativity in overcoming challenges. In today's talk series, we are very honored to welcome three distinguished speakers, Dato Kamarul, we have Kuhan, and Izzana. We are also very delighted to have the wonderful Ms. Deborah Henry as our host and moderator for this session. Let's embrace the valuable insight shared today and more importantly, live this event with a renewed sense of purpose, a stronger belief in our abilities, and the determination to overcome any challenges ahead. May this experience inspire us all to rise to new heights with resilience and confidence. Before I hand the session over to our hosts, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you for making time to be with us today. So without further delay, let's begin today's discussion. Thank you once again for your time today, and let's make it the most of it together. Deborah, the floor is yours now.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing today? Great. We're so excited to have you with us this afternoon. We have a full house. We will be serving tea later on, but we're very excited to get this conversation going. And we would like to encourage all of you, if you have questions, please do write them down. And we're going to try to get to all of your questions, hopefully midway through the conversation today. So without further ado, because I have many questions for our panelists, not often you get three incredible individuals who come from such diverse backgrounds on one stage, I'm going to get started. So please join me in welcoming on stage Dato Kamarul Muhamed, founder and CEO Aerodyne, DT3 Drone Technology, Data Technology and Digital Transformation Enterprise Solutions. Yes, you can sit over there, provider. And now please join me in welcoming Kuhan Pathy, founder of Paper Labs Social Enterprise, They drive social transformation through sustainable economic empowerment and inclusive growth. And finally, Izzana Salleh, founder of Girls for Girls Project, building our leaders of tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. Please grab your seats. All right, so I know I was saying I've got many questions, so we're going to dive right into it. We have an incredible title today. I love the title, What My Mentor and Leaders Never Told Me, Leading Through Twists, Trials, and Triumphs. How many of you here in the room today have mentors or have had a mentor? Can we have a show of hands? Okay, maybe just under like 35% perhaps. And how many of you will agree that having a mentor in your life has been invaluable? And how many of you would like a mentor, but don't have one, cannot find? You have to like send them an email and say, would you be my mentor? Apparently that's not the best way to do it, but anyways. Okay, so as we delve into the experiences of our esteemed panelists, I'd like to invite all of you to think about how Malaysia's youth, many of whom are stepping away from formal education and structured employment, are shaping the future. Whether choosing entrepreneurship or traditional employment, every generation plays a vital role in driving Malaysia forward. So today we're going to explore how we can guide our next generation of leaders through the challenges they face, learning and listening and helping them find their purpose. They'll probably also help us find our purpose, and ultimately about how we can contribute to our nation's progress. So once again, thank you so much, Dato Kamarul, Kuhan, and Izzana for being here today. We're very excited to hear your stories. I'm sure very real, keep them real, raw, honest, and I'm sure very relatable. And of course, to the audience, we'd love to hear your questions. So we're in an interesting time. Unlike ever before, we have unprecedented access to resources, to skills, to information. And yet, with the vast knowledge and a global marketplace, the world continues to be volatile and uncertain. With the limitless possibilities come complexities. And in this era, with good leadership, it's very critical. So maybe we'll start with you, Dato. What mindset or approach do you think we should adopt to successfully shift and shape our lives and that of our generation in a rapidly evolving, not just environment in Malaysia, but globally?
I think it was Jack Walsh who said that if the rate of change on the outside is faster than the rate of change on the inside, then the end is near. So basically he's saying that we really must change constantly. We really must be we must have our hand on the pulse of the industry. We need to keep innovating, we need to be changing, we need to be crystal balling quite a lot, and then sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but you just need to evolve and keep going. And of course, as in any endeavor, as in any business, you are actually solving problems, societal problem, or problems on the world, right? So you want to find meaningful problem to solve. You don't want to do things that you like. Oftentimes people get into that trap because you like certain things, so that's where you tend to get into, but you want to be thinking about meaning, about purpose, solve that critical problem, solve that big issue.
Thank you. Kuhan?
So likewise, I think I would echo with Dato as well. Change is something that I believe is constant. And in today's rapidly changing world, especially with technological advancements, and then you have to deal with many millennials. How many millennials in this room? It's so quiet. Millennials are never quiet. So, and millennials being very innovative and they are the best teachers and the mentors today, especially in today's generation, right? So I think that's where change comes about and managing them. At the same time, as I run a social enterprise, it comes a lot with purpose. And purpose is what drives change as well. Yep.
And jumping to you, Izzana?
Sure, I'm actually going to pile on to what the two gents said. I feel like we are in our purpose era, as they call it. Whether it's business with purpose, whether it's living with purpose, whether it's relationship with purpose, and not in the advantageous manner, but just with meaning, with presence, with your mind and all of it. And it brings me great pleasure to see that this has become the way a lot of the young people live. So being called a millennial, you're no more the youngest in the room, you're sort of like mid-generation. But the next gen, they live with purpose and they choose their careers with purpose. And it's such a pleasure to see and to know that, you know what, that is our next generation of leaders, and that gives me a bit of hope.
So you're talking about being young. So if I were to take you back to your 18-year-old self, what were your aspirations then? And did you have it all figured out? Or if you look back now, has it been a journey of twists, trials, and triumphs?
For sure, twists and trials a lot. I'm not too sure about triumphs, but I was a wide-eyed, ambitious 18-year-old girl, and I wanted to conquer the world in whatever shape or form. But of course, life, as we all know it, has its own curveballs. You know, it really throws you a few and see how you respond to it. And that's just the name of the game. That's just how life is. It's about us being able to problem solve with grace and being able to live up to our fullest potential. And today, I'm very happy to share that a lot of the not-for-profit work that I do is really in a space that I feel is my purpose, and I'm so pleased to be there. It is for me, sometimes people ask, what is your hobby? And I'm like, I don't know if I have a hobby. My work is my work. It's my hobby. I love to live, breathe, and eat in this space of helping young women and girls all the time. And so, yeah, I think if I could turn back time and give my 18-year-old self some advice, I'd probably say, you know, don't be too fixated on what that future looks like. Learn how to hone in on your values, learn problem-solving skills, which is so important in life and transferable, whether in personal space, professional space, and also across industries as well.
Thank you. Kuhan, I think a lot of young Malaysians, what I see on social media now is we're starting to really recognize and place inspiring, iconic Malaysians on a pedestal and recognize them. But often if you ask the average person, name me a Malaysian who you find inspiring, they take a moment and like, hey, who, how? You know, and maybe we don't recognize and celebrate what we achieve, our talent enough. Maybe I can ask you, who are some Malaysians living or who passed on who have inspired you to do what you do?
So, you know, when we talk about inspiration, right? I was wondering, you know, today if I want to talk about someone, then I just had the same thoughts, like who would I want to talk about? There's just so many of them, right? But then I thought to myself, what is actually close to me today? And the people that inspire me on a daily basis are the people I work with. And when I say the people I work with are the ones that I work with my social enterprise. So what I'm telling you is actually, they also say social entrepreneurs are great storytellers. So I'm going to tell you a story as well with that, right? So as simple as, I like to call my beneficiaries as kakak, or most of them I don't call machi because they'll get offended, right? Even though, you know, you can call them machi. So I say kakak. And I would like to say a story of Kakak Juraini, right? Someone that I've been working for the last 3 years. Now, she lives in PPR Kampong Limau, and she was one of my first beneficiaries from that particular PPR. But what inspires me the most about her is because her willingness to continue learning, even though at her age, she has to adopt digitalization, she has to adopt food tech, you know, maneuvering through the Grab and the Food Panda. I'm not talking about ordering. Ordering is quite simple. My mom now has learned how to order her own Grab to the hospital, right? I'm talking about the merchant side, which is on the back end, right? And she actually takes her time to, you know, go through the YouTube videos and just to operate it. And I got to know, like, in a month, not even in a month, in a week, she was able to generate at least 8,000 ringgit income for her. And that's a large amount in a PPR vicinity, okay? Now, that is just a story of one kakak. And today we have served over 4,000 people. And these are the people that inspire me daily. And these are the people that, if you ask me who are the Malaysians I look up to the Malaysians that are working with us in about 16 PPRs today. And these are the kakak, not much of an abang lah, 99% are kakak. I don't know why, but I know the ladies in this room will be feeling, yes, because we are hardworking. Yes, indeed. I'm a testament. And almost all the kakak are very hardworking, and they inspire me day in, day out.
Maybe kakak like bald hair. Bald.
Well, it was funny you say that because I was just interviewed before coming on the stage, and the question was, who do you admire? And that's very much my answer. I admire the people I encounter every single day. And if you can, I say I steal what's good about them. I say, oh, I really like how that person articulates himself or how they treat other people, and I take it. I'll make that my own. So it's very easy to find inspiration. So Dato, my next question is for you. We talked about, we asked the audience earlier about who has mentors, and we asked for a show of hands. Is having a mentor essential for success? I personally have never had one. I would love to have one, but perhaps it just never, I never encountered the right individual. I didn't maybe know how to ask for one. But I've made a conscious effort to learn from people I meet. So can life itself be a teacher? What proactive steps should someone take to be able to keep learning if you don't have a mentor? Books, videos, we have access to unlimited information nowadays. So.
Well, I think today we are in the golden age of AI, right? I mean, you can get any advice that you want, and we are also in the social media era. You can always connect with everybody, everybody and anybody that you wanted as well. Whether or not mentor is important, it depends. Not everybody needs that, but at some stage of your journey, you will need that because this journey is not easy. There will be curveball everywhere. There will be times that you need people to guide you in the right direction. And not even that. You also need people to be your cheerleader to keep you going because it's a very, very tough journey. I even have a confession room in my office. So that, seriously, I'm helping a lot of startup founders as well. They would come to me. Some of them would cry. I just need a hug. No, I'm not kidding. Gentlemen.
Well, what happens in the confession room?
Okay.
Serious question.
No, serious, right? I mean, it's tough out there. A lot of them, even today, especially, are having cash flow issue. A lot of them are having family problem as well, because they are putting all that they have into their business. I mean, many of these founders that I know are very dedicated. They have a very clear vision, but the road is full of corners, and it's not an easy thing. So they needed another voice to help them. They needed some injection, even. On the small scale, I set aside R1 million of my personal money that I've been helping all these guys. And they've been paying back. This is like petty, small money. So they would borrow for a couple of months and they will give back. You feel, this is what I do for myself. At least I feel that I'm contributing to the ecosystem. So you need this. And oftentimes, you need people that experience the same thing, because so that you can tell you, hey, it's not the end of the world. This is just one problem that you need to solve. And it's like playing games. This is my typical story to them. It's like playing games. If you have problem, you are meeting the level boss. You kill the level boss, then you go to the next level. Next level means you progress to the next one. Sometimes people just need to get that encouragement. Sometimes running a startup, you would feel that you are facing a dead wall already. You can't move forward anymore. So you need somebody that understands you. So I think that's why mentorship is important. You can get it officially. You can get it with friends. We also have like WhatsApp group within some of the local founders as well. I think that's the support system that we can offer to the ecosystem.
Thank you. So now I'd like to move on to the idea of doing good business. Richard Branson said, doing good is good for business. And so it's interesting now because we talk about social enterprises, non-profits, for-profit, and you wonder, if you're for-profit, does that mean you do less good than the social enterprise? What does doing good mean? So I was recently in India, and I picked up the book, and it's about, we've heard of the big conglomerate Tata company. They do pretty much everything. And it's actually a very old, it's an old family generational business. I believe they came from Iran, so Persians. And I was reading the book and there was a quote that this man was asked, the founder of Tata Group, and he was asked this in 1895. So a long time ago, more than 100 years ago. And he was asked this about what the principles of his business were. And he said this: "We think we started on sound and straightforward business principles, considering the interests of our shareholders as our own and the health and welfare of our employees, the foundation of our prosperity. The community is not just another stakeholder, but the very purpose of our existence. So if you describe that today, it would sound like perhaps Kuhan a social enterprise versus your typical capitalist for-profit country. So Dato Kamarul, a question for you. You're in the tech world, it's fast-paced, it's unpredictable. Essentially, you snooze, you lose. You have to keep up with the trends, keep up with the tech. You started your company as a 3-person team back in 2014. Today, you were saying earlier, you're operating in, I can't remember, 20 or 30 over offices, many, many countries globally. How do you lead through industry disruptions and uncertainty while still doing what is right for your business, your stakeholders, employees, and essentially the environment?
So the purpose has not changed, but how we do it has evolved multiple times throughout the journey. And when we first started, of course, we started in Malaysia. We operated in Malaysia for the first 5 years. And of course, our purpose is to help companies improve their operation. We are a digital transformation as a service organization. We help people like plantation industries increase their yield, reduce their costs, oil and gas company to reduce their costs significantly. A logistics company deliver things faster, cheaper, safer, and so on and so forth. So that's our purpose, delivering transformation to the market. But what you do along the way can evolve, will evolve as well. For example, when we started, we look at the power industry. So even today, we are still serving TNB. We are making sure the lights are on today. We are doing 60% of the work in Malaysia is done by our team. But guess what? When we try to export this outside of Malaysia, no interest, very little interest. There's some interest, but very little. So you have to adapt. So then we started to look at other things. Today in Australia, for example, we are the largest company that helps serve the telco infrastructure. So the core technology remains the same, but we need to be creative in the sense that how can we use this core technology that we have so that we can serve various different industries as well. Likewise, oil and gas. Oil and gas in Malaysia is very different in terms of the requirement in Brazil, for example. So I think that's the part of where we need to be very open. Different market would act differently, would have different requirements, different nuances and all that. The next big thing that we are looking at right now is to solve the problem of logistics. And of course, typical logistics, people will use lorries and all that. We can deliver things at a fraction, maybe 10% of the time that's needed by lorry. So you need to be constantly on the ball, thinking about how you can deliver more meaning, more value to your customer.
Kuhan, you're a social entrepreneur, one of the many hats that you wear. You've stressed that we must treat social enterprises as a business entity and not a charity because they have the potential to be a tool for socio-economic transformation. So they're powerful entities. Do social enterprises have a specific function that regular businesses do not have? Are we also caught up on all the buzzwords and the jargon? And can we work towards a world where all businesses are designed to consider people, planet, and profit?
And I think for many people who, I would like to start with the context of what is a social enterprise as well. So to give you a little bit of a background, right, how did I start? So I wear multiple hats, and I hope the youths here would be able to relate as well. So I'm an engineer. At the same time, I'm also founder of a social enterprise. Now, how it started off was I had just one youth. So I always tell this story, one youth, one food truck. So I had this friend of mine who actually studied with me, and he actually had gone into social ills. And because he had gone into social ills, he was very much involved in gangsterism. And this one day, he got into a fight, and he literally got his wrist sliced, all right? And at that point of time, they were rushing hospital to hospital, were figuring out what could they do for him. And his mom turned up and just asked us one question. You guys come from the same school, but what could you do for your friend here? Because you today, you're an engineer and you are out of this social circle. You have progressed. But what about the ones behind, left behind? And that's when I thought, I'll get him a food truck. And I said that, why don't you circle this food truck down to Brickfields and you manage this food truck and you try to come up and climb up the socio-economic ladder. Now, that's how it started, just one truck and one person. But we never knew that it was going to turn into a social enterprise where it is today, right? When he started, on the first day, he realized that many other youths within that area which is a really hardcore area, started coming up to him and saying, after school, can I come and spend time with you? Because most of these kids are dropouts. So they will anyhow drop out and they will not go to school, or they would, in the end of the day, end up pushing drugs. So he said, why don't, let's use this truck to move around. Now again here, my intention is to make money. In the end of the day, it's about profit. It's about hardcore capitalism, right? When we first started. But after that, we realized that as he started going around, as he started selling, we realized there was some surplus profits. Okay? Now the question is, what do you do with the surplus profits? Why don't you bring in more youths, or in the same time, why can't you feed people? That's how it started. And then someone came and told us, hey, you know something? This is actually a social enterprise model. And that's when it started in 2015. And today, as we speak, 9 years later, that one person has grown into 4,000 people. And that one person has actually, from what we started with a 5 ringgit meal, today we have reinvested 7 million back into the society. Because it's run as 100% not for profit. Even it's a social enterprise, but the revenue is back into the society. And the reason here is why I'm sharing is that this is how we rethink the model. The model is hardcore capitalism. That means it was meant to generate profit. But at the same time, today, most of the youths and most of the consumers are looking at a purpose. They're looking beyond just the product. They're looking beyond that. They're looking for a story behind the product. And when they started seeing that every meal that was purchased from us actually helped to put these kids in school so that they complete SPM and get into some decent job, or actually helped these youths to run a business, and later on the women of the marginalized communities to run a business, that is when the purpose was served. So if you ask me, can business and also a purpose serve together? Yes. And today we talk about ESG. And I always tell social enterprises are operationalizing ESG, and they can live hand in hand together.
Thank you. Well said. I know we could get into a lot more about the structure of SEs and that, but we shall leave that for another time. Izzana, I'm not sure if you'd like to comment on that. I definitely think you would, but you're doing incredible work with Girls for Girls. Basically, you're cultivating and nurturing our leaders of tomorrow. So interested when we talk about the mindset of our future leaders, what do you work on with these girls? What do they struggle with today? And are there certain values that you're very focused on teaching them to prepare them for that tomorrow?
Sure. Maybe I can start by sharing a bit about how we came about. And this was actually in 2016, the end of 2016. I think most of you would remember the first time Trump ran for election. It was around that period. And my co-founders and I were based in Cambridge, Massachusetts at that time. We were doing our master's program. And because it was election season and we were all personally interested in the American politics, we went out and did GOTV, canvassing for votes. And it was very interesting for us, Boston being a very democratic state. Obviously, we know the results today. So when Clinton lost, my now co-founders and I, we sat down over a cup of coffee and we said, how is it that a woman who had the right pedigree, the right education, the resources, the network, the experience, how is it that someone so well set up still at that time failed to become the president of a superpower in 2016? And a thought came to our mind, which is that if someone like her didn't make it, what about the rest of us from all different parts of the world when we're climbing our corporate ladder or trying to run our business or whatever it is to be the best version of ourselves? If she couldn't make it, what about us? We're so small compared to her, or so we said. And because we have this mindset of, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? So we put our heads together and we said, let's do something. Let's stop talking about this is the responsibility of our government, this is the responsibility of everyone else but ourselves. And so we sat and we spoke to our professors at that time. We said, let's do a bit of research and understand what would it take to have more women leaders out there. And what we discovered through our, it's a program called Harvard Square to Oval Office. That's a subset of the master's program. We found that there were 3 reasons why we don't see enough women and girls putting their hands up for leadership. The first being lack of confidence. This is not saying that all women are like that, but a very broad brush data shows that there is a lack or perceived lack of confidence. That's why they don't say, hey, I'm up for that job. Second is lack of leadership skills. Now, leadership skills, there's hard skills and there's soft skills. And a lot of times, some women, and actually qualified women, will say, hey, no, I don't know how to negotiate that trade negotiation, or I don't know how to stand up on stage and speak to 1,000 people, whatever the skills may be. And the third reason is support system. There is especially this part of the world actually, culturally, lack of support system, whether it's in the family, it's in the spouse, it's in the in-laws, it's in the culture. I mean, maybe not the women in this room, which from what I see is all mostly professionals, but out there, a lot of the conversation is a woman's place is in the kitchen. And your place is to give birth to the next generation, and that's it. And your place is not in school. You're not allowed to have an education, right? Which is the furthest thing from the truth. And so we decided that we must do something to help the women whose 50% of our talent across the globe actually contribute back so that in your nation, because we are functioning across 33 countries, in your respective nations, women are such an incredible backbone and a force to be reckoned with. And if you don't harness that talent as a country's leadership, you are at a loss, right? Your female labor participation rate cannot be so poor that you're leaving opportunities, talent on the table. And so based on that and conversations with Harvard Kennedy School professors, we came up with a program. We're not saying that this solves it all, but this is a start. So we've created a program that helps to mentor women in 6 spaces. Firstly, it's called Building Trust. And we don't talk about building trust between mentor and mentee, but it's about the woman building trust in herself, that she deserves a seat at the table, and not only that, if you work hard and of course you're full of substance and merit, that they will be lucky to have you at that table. Number 2, courageous leadership, which is that young women and girls, and as young as 19, 18, because I'm sure you all experience this, young ones today are extremely talented. There's a lot of knowledge out there. We talk about courageous leadership, which is even if your voice shakes, speak up. Whatever is in here, speak up. Number 3, the art of communication. Because the leader, what is a leader without a follower, even if it's one person? So we talk about speaking in an influential and impactful manner, because that's how you need to get your followers to go towards your path of betterment. Number 4, negotiations. A huge part of the gender wage gap is because 70% of women do not negotiate. That is a lot of money and economic wealth left on the table because they don't open their mouth, because they don't understand how to research their worth before going to the negotiations table. And so what we do is we provide framework and role play. We have mentors from industry. By the way, I'm looking for more mentors. If you're interested, hit me up. But we get young women to negotiate and get comfortable in being uncomfortable. Push back. Push back because you know your worth. Number 5, public service, which is exactly what Kuhan does. This world will not circulate when we don't contribute back to the public, when we don't serve back our communities. You can be for profit, but in your line of life, if you don't contribute back, the world will stop. And so we always encourage, even if you are a for-profit person, there must be a not-for-profit element in your life, somewhere, somehow, even if it's 2 hours a week. And number 6, ethics and values and decision-making. The reason why we emphasize on this is because when you are in a leadership position, doesn't matter which part of the rank in your organization, a leader is always stuck between making hundreds of very critical decisions each day. And our research shows that young women and girls are afraid of leadership positions because if you make the wrong decision, you could have very terrible consequences on someone else's life. That's quite a big burden to carry. And so we've got a framework that helps young women and girls run through decisions they've made in the past and potential future decisions. We get them to run through the framework again and again and again until you get comfortable making those difficult decisions in your head. It becomes a habit. And to be honest, Deborah, at the end of our program, not only our mentees are extremely excited to go out with skill sets that they can utilize, even our mentors side, a lot of reverse mentoring that happens. And so, that wraps up in a long way the 6 areas that actually we focus on, and based on research, we feel young women and girls could benefit from.
Wow, that's incredible. I'd be very, very keen to actually sit with some of the girls who come out of the program and to see that transformation when they re-enter the workforce or back into school, what that would look like. They would
actually, that looks like negotiated salary, setting up their own organization, and actually asking for a leadership position.
So if you're a keen mentor, please call Izzana. Dato Kamarul, you're in the tech space where innovation is happening at breakneck speed. We're in an interesting position in our region and potentially as a global leader in this space. How is our younger generation responding to AI? An interesting question. Are they approaching it with excitement, more excitement than the older ones? They're like, it's a lot of fear in the eyes of the older ones. And maybe could AI be a good mentor? Well, you answered that earlier in shaping leaders, but I'm interested in how the younger generation perceive AI, but also where Malaysia is positioned to be a global leader.
Okay, so when it comes to AI, we are now entering the era of AGI, artificial general intelligence. We are already using our GPT-4 and all that. Basically, there's no limit to knowledge. You can ask anything, you get your answer immediately. So the way we do things, the way we ask questions, the way we plan, it's not very, very different. And within the next couple of years, I do not think that artificial super intelligence is also very, very far away. So when we look at, from technology point of view, 2 things that will change the world at a pace that we have never seen before. Number 1, of course, AI, we know that already. But number 2 is computing. Quantum computing will change the world as we know it. Many economies of the world today are already putting billions and billions, perhaps even trillions of dollars already into quantum computer. And why? Quantum computing will be billions and trillions of times faster than the fastest of computer today. And it's not just that. It's also quantum communication. Quantum communication would enable you to send massive amount of data within a split second. So when you combine artificial general intelligence together with the super fast computing, the world will change, we'll witness transformation like we have never seen before. So now the question is, how do we remain relevant in this country? The good news is that we already, a lot of noise, a lot of chatter is already on AI. But also, at the same time, we need to start thinking about talent as well. Hence the reason why I was talking about earlier, where I spent a lot of time at universities as well. Today, because I couldn't get enough talents, I get talents from the US, I get talents from the States, I get talent from India, talent from Vietnam as well to help work on this thing. At the same time, expose our local talent to this as well. And I think this will change the world as we know it. In fact, so much so, by the time we go into artificial general intelligence, towards the end of general intelligence, we as humans might become irrelevant. So society of the future will look very different. What we do on our daily basis will become different.
But that sounds a bit scary.
It is scary. It is scary. That's why we need to be on the ball. We need to be know exactly what's coming, because society of the future will look extremely different. In fact, some people are already talking that in the future, maybe 20 years or 30 years from now, we are all going to be on universal basic income. So all of us will get money from tax that are being charged on those robots. Robots that will be doing all the job for us. So human will live life very, very differently. So I'm just sharing about seemingly a green future, but at the same time, if we know to harness this technology or be the one that create this is opportunity for Malaysia as well to be.
I guess just quickly, if I could ask you about the role of ethics in that space, because what are the regulations, the guidelines, like that's an important part.
Absolutely. In fact, it's the hottest topic when it comes to AI. You know, at the end of the day, if we leave this unchecked, I mean, this can go south very, very easily. But the good news is that all the guys that are behind this are putting ethics as top priority on this as well. So does that mean that we can relax and just leave it to chance? I think no. We should play our role here as well. Even how we manage our data, how do we share our data. This is something that we need to be a little bit careful at the moment. But at the same time, my suggestions to everyone in this room today, to my fellow panelists as well, I see this coming. It is beyond. It's not beyond the horizon. I can see at the horizon. It is coming. It's time for us as a nation, as the people of Malaysia, to rise up. I'm always scared when I'm in China to see how deeply involved they are. I just came back from Moscow. Everybody, I was speaking at the BRICS conference just last week. Everybody was talking about this, right? From even from HR point of view, how that's going to change the job of the future and all that. So if we are not there yet, this is the time for us to start thinking about this future.
And just to touch on what Dato was saying, Izzana, talent. You were saying that you had to hire from outside, there wasn't enough here. And I was listening to this speaker a few months back, and he was talking about talent in Malaysia. And often we go Malaysian talent, which means you need to be Malaysian. But talent in Malaysia could be any talent in this country. You don't need to carry Malaysian citizenship. So maybe, and we say this, everyone has talent, but to the work that you do, not everyone has opportunity. What are your thoughts on how we leverage talent in this country to be more dynamic and more diverse?
That's a very interesting question. So we have Malaysians in Malaysia as talent. We have non-Malaysians in Malaysia as talent. But we also have Malaysians not in Malaysia as talent. Because the way the world works, and listening to some of the frightening things that Dato has said, I think with technology, talent is available everywhere, but it's just how do we harness it? And your question was whether we are fully utilizing the diverse talent that we have, right? And this is a personal view representing no organization. I feel that we can better utilize what we have here and also overseas. Because actually, the many Malaysians that I've met who are in official, professional positions, but also the ones out there, like the ones that Kuhan works with. We do some work in PPR as well. There's a lot of substance that can be utilized if there's a bit more structure put in to actually harness what we have within Malaysians here, within non-Malaysians here, and within Malaysians overseas. And I feel that once we actually find that formula that either capitalizes on all of these different categories of Malaysians and the diversity in expertise that we have, the diversity in perspectives that we have, I feel that then we are at our best performing space. I feel that in the current position that we have for a 2024 assessment, I don't think that we're fully utilizing the diversity that we could actually get.
So Kuhan, Masala Wheels is the country's first social enterprise to be acquired by a corporation through an equity partnership. Now that's a very big thing. For those of you in the room who may go, acquisition, it does not happen in the social enterprise world. It's very hard. It's very hard to be profitable. It's very hard to raise investors, raise capital, and to be acquired, even harder. So amazing, amazing. Maybe tell us a little bit about how that came about. What were the challenges, or what did you need to overcome in order to make that happen? And is that a journey that we should see more social enterprises head down?
All right, thank you. So I'm just going to tie back to my panelists over here, right? So when we speak about the role of social enterprise, it actually brings me back to a conversation we had a few days in the SDG Summit. I'm not sure how many of you would have attended. A few days ago, they had an SDG Summit, and they spoke about the role of the third sector. And in the States, they call it the fourth sector, but in Malaysia, we term it as the third sector. So the third sector, the role of the third sector in connecting the government and also the private stakeholders along with the people. Now, like it or not, we have actually come to a position or a country where this, or even not only the nation, but internationally, we live in a very polarized condition. In the sense that the people and the power, and also those in the position of power, when we talk about Malaysia, we are actually quite far. That means how often can you even go and step up to someone who is actually changing your faith to tell him your opinion? And that is one of the distance of people to power is actually much more distancing in Malaysia. So when we spoke about technology, right? We speak about AI. I'm not talking about ChatGPT, though I know many of you would have ChatGPT on your mobile, including my team, that I can, when they type responses to me, I can identify whether it's coming from them naturally or it's coming from ChatGPT talking to me. So the same thing also when we talk about talent, right? Now, all this technology and also talent, like it or not, those with equal opportunities or those who have the avenues to explore this are the ones that are moving forward. But when we speak about marginalized communities, the people that we work with are, for instance, former convict. That means those who just got out of prison. Where do they go? Do they have a social safety net for them to come to? Or we even talk about PPR communities, because for them technology is a large jargon and they would actually distance themselves away because they live in such a circle. Likewise, there are talents there, but these talents do not have those avenues. So when it came to that instance in 2019, we actually pitched to a corporation or multiple corporations to say, we can be that connecting dot. And today, till today, even if you open the document of RMK 12, the 12th Malaysian plan, we pitched the same thing to the government as well, to state that the third sector or social enterprises can be that connecting dot that you're seeing, and we can help you to converge that. So when it came to this company, which actually runs talent programs, at the same time, which is also a technology company, they realized that they were doing a lot for the people in the likes of y'all, which are the professionals. But they also realized that they had the heart for the people who are in the communities that are being left out. So they felt there was a large digital gap among these marginalized communities. But they also realized that they don't have the avenues to reach out, because remember, community relationship is not built in a day. During COVID, many people struggled to actually reach out to those communities because they had a lot of funds, but they couldn't go and reach out to a PPR community to just provide that meal. But social enterprises like us, we provided 80,000 meals just during COVID only. And that is because the trust that we built over time. Now, how do we capitalize this trust? So we went up to this corporation and we said, why don't you capitalize this trust to achieve your objective? Because a lot of corporations today would like to achieve their ESG, including Petronas or even Shell. But till today, they're figuring out, how do I actually meet this E and S? Because most of them are very good in G, the governance side. But when it comes to environment and social, they're still finding a conduit. And this conduit is what we say could be the social enterprises. And that's when, at the times when people say social enterprises are actually charity goers, and they also say that these are not bankable models. So when we did that pitch, and they decided to actually take up an equity, and we took that bold move to divest an equity from the company, and right on time, because Tun Dr. Mahathir was also in the office, and it was his first year in the office, we actually got him to witness that corporate divestment, where the corporate company actually bought equity from the social enterprise, and we immediately pushed out the narratives that social enterprises are your conduit to achieving your social objectives. So that's how it all came about.
Social enterprises are bankable.
Definitely.
Dato Kamarul, talking about, a lot of the chatter and banter is about entrepreneurs. And the reality is, most people will remain employees, right? And if you look at a nation, it's not a competition, it should be complementary. But we always tend to talk about this entrepreneurial spirit. what are the values and the entrepreneurial values an employee can take into their workforce? If you're in a traditional employment structure, can you bring those values into your workforce? Can they affect the environment that they work in?
So, Professor Stevenson from MIT defined entrepreneurship as doing something without having the resource. Whereas professional managers are good at managing resource that they have in their hand. So it's like the opposite. Right? So you think about it, entrepreneurs and professional managers won't mix because like different mindset, different way of looking at things. However, on the other hand, if you give people purpose, number one, you can't expect every employee, every team members to have that entrepreneurship mindset because it is tough. I think everybody can vouch to that as well, right? But having that entrepreneur drive within an organization is also actually very, very useful. I think many organizations try to bring that value within their workforce as well. And why not? When you are an entrepreneur, you have a purpose, you have a clear purpose, and you drive it. You do whatever it takes to get that. But whatever it takes come within an inverted comma over there as well. Because you need to have controls, you need to have a limit of what you can and cannot do. But most importantly, what we want to achieve out of this is the will, the creativity for you to go out there and solve problems and to deliver new value. I know many organizations try to do this. We try to do this in our organization as well with some success. We call it management by purpose. So we actually come up with our own management philosophy. We give everyone within the organization your own purpose so that you can run your division like it is an entity by itself, like it is a company by itself. So we let them run free in a way. I mean, within some constraint as well. Because the purpose will define what are the objectives that you wanted to get. And then within the same division, you have maybe 10 or 20 or 30 people. Everybody will get their own personal purpose as well. Collectively, all personal purpose will equate to the divisional purpose. It's almost like an entrepreneurship as well. So we have started this process about almost a year and a half ago already, and we are seeing some ownership, greater ownership. People are driving things as well. So I think bringing in this entrepreneurship value within an organization is a good thing. In fact, some of the organizations that I talk to right now as well, I'm in Bank Negara, and Bank Negara also talking about this as well, how we bring more entrepreneurship within the bank itself and so on and so forth. So that's how we try and put this.
So very much also the leadership has to cultivate that culture within the company.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the shift of mindset is the part where it takes a little bit of push and a little bit of awareness for that to happen as well. Because people are built differently. You know, you go out there and you do your MBA, you're really good at your number crunching and all that, right? But all you learn at MBA, for example, is about optimizing your resource. Whereas if you run, and if you're an entrepreneur, it's not about optimizing resource. It's about achieving your vision. You do it even without having the resource. You figure out along the way. And in many organizations, you can't do that, right? So how do you find the middle ground in this?
Thank you. So we've been talking a lot about leadership today, and very often we think of owners of businesses and of leading the country. But Izzana, to ask you, is it necessary to hold a formal position of authority to be considered a leader today? Can someone demonstrate leadership in any aspect of their lives, whether it's social, family, whichever that may be?
Sure. You absolutely don't need to have a formal position to be able to exercise your leadership. In fact, for the professionals here, every single point of the hierarchy, we have the largest power distance in this world, so we have a lot of hierarchy in an organization, but every single person there holds a power, holds a formal and informal leadership and power capability, as well as those out there. You can exercise, and you should exercise, your leadership no matter what position you hold and what position you don't hold. Because a lot of it is ensuring that a leader who exercises his or her or their leadership is someone who brings this set of followers to a greater purpose, right? And I think that in today's day and age, we see a lot of people holding multiple hats. You have an engineer who's also a social enterprise founder, and that's just one example of many people out there who's exercising their leadership in many different places. You also don't have to go and try so hard. Sometimes the opportunity comes to you and says, "Here, you got to take this on." The universe aligns in a certain way, whether it is running your own NGO, whether it is, changing the world with tech, or whether it is making a difference with the PPR community and thousands of them at that. And so I think that absolutely you don't have to have a formal leadership. And I think that that's probably a bit of an old school way of thinking. I feel that when people are not bound by title or position and realize that there is so much in them to be able to make a change, I think that's how, I know this is a bit of a cliche way to say it, but that is how the world becomes a better place. That every single person in this room, whether you are here invited and you have a seat, or whether you don't and you're standing and you have a duty here today, you have not only the ability to, but you also have a moral obligation to. Look around at what's happening in the world today in the last year. We don't even have to look very far to say 10 years, but there is global chaos happening everywhere. And so I ask you to think about it. What are you doing? How are you exercising your leadership to make this better? And if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? And that's the best way to think about it.
Absolutely. And I think on that point, we would like to open to questions from the floor. So we could get our ushers with mics to maybe be on standby. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, you can just pop your hand up and then someone will come over to you. You can tell us your name and your question. But just quickly, just to run through to all of our panelists, maybe we can quickly identify something I would say a good leader should never do, or maybe a good thing, something a good leader should always do, depending on how you want to word it. And what do you think maybe two or three core values that matter the most to you in your personal journeys? We can start with Dato.
I would say grit, determination, consistency, and honesty. 4 values.
Testing. So for me, I think it would be good leaders should never stop building and shaping younger leaders. I think that is one of the most important key takeaways in today's world. We see that the leaders continue to stay in their roles and deprive opportunities for the younger people. And I think leaders should never stop building younger leaders.
For me, I think that the best leaders will ensure that they're not the smartest person in the room, that they're constantly surrounded or they're hiring people smarter and better than them. They've got to be the most efficient at utilizing resources and talent, but they better not be the smartest person in the room, otherwise you don't progress. And in terms of values, I would say a lot about cultivating the next generation. Because from what I've observed, sometimes there's a lot of great initiatives and efforts and policies out there, but I think where Malaysia lacks is the sustainability and succession planning across the board. So the development of the next generation.
And I would add on empathy. Leadership that has empathy. You know, we move from a place of very strong, authoritative leadership to more strategic leadership. How do you be a more empathetic leader? It doesn't mean you need to be a pushover, but there's this distinction of you can be a kind leader and still be strong, still make the right decisions. But that I think is something that is so critical to cultivate in the next generation. All right, so questions. I hope we have lots of questions. We've got a bit of time. We were talking about millennials. What about the next Gen Z, right? Gen Z's in the room? Anyone?
Baby boomers are also welcomed.
And everybody, XY, every other alphabet too. I know a question was, oh yeah, we have a question up the front here. Oh, sorry, one was...
Right, hello. My name is Akila. So I want to ask, as the leader, how do you handle criticism or constructive feedback, especially when it challenges your leadership style or decisions?
Oh, that's a great question. Who would like to take it?
I can. So I think, like it or not, all leaders have ego. All right? It's an inbuilt thing. And if someone were to come and tell you that, oh, just give me all your feedback you want, and if you were to say, as constructive as it is, it's human nature. It will be in the back of our mind. So I'm not going to just, paint the picture so nice and beautiful to you and say that, hey, come and tell me what you want to tell me, and then tomorrow I'm just not going to swing by the pantry without even looking at you. So, but the harsh reality is, I think this is something that I learned in my journey, is that, like it or not, some people might not like you, and some people might like you. But it also depends that you need to hear them out. Today, some people actually just turn an entire deaf ear about what others have got to say. And some people, I also realize that they have a quote, I'm not a politician. I don't have to be liked by everyone. But that's not the instance that we are living in a world today. We have to hear, but it is also important to actually take a step back. And I also believe you should take a step out of yourself and put yourself in others' shoe. When you sit in their own angle and you look at it, take a pause, then you might be able to take that constructive feedback. It's not an easy one, but it is a gradual process, and it's a much needed one to shape you as a better leader.
Yeah, if I could add to that, great answer. I'd love to add maybe being able to have a bit of a mindset shift. And what I mean by that is if we have a growth mindset, so whatever challenges that come our way, whatever criticisms, constructive or not, that come our way, and especially in today's day and age, you get cancelled publicly, whether you're a public figure or not, right? Everyone's sort of free with information, whether it's fact-checked or not. So I find that shifting towards a growth mindset and utilizing the criticisms or the challenges as data, as areas for you to grow. In life, I would like to think that generally we all want to become better, a better version of ourselves compared to who we were yesterday and the day before and all of that. And so having that kind of mindset, like, okay, this person said so-and-so about me, and they said it so publicly. Okay, let's put the emotion aside a bit. Maybe that was a bit humiliating, or maybe it was a lot humiliating. We accept, but you know what? Today's news will become tomorrow's newspaper, nasi lemak cover. But what is it that you can learn from what was said? Maybe we did do something wrong. Maybe we did approach that in a harsh manner without empathy. And so for me, it is a gift, a very painful gift sometimes, but one that will make us a better person at the end of the day.
And I think that's part of the parcel of being a leader, right? That grit, that resilience that you need. Dato, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think in fact it should be encouraged. I mean, I have an open channel in my organization. I would encourage people to speak up. I would encourage people to speak their mind. Because number one, you want to develop leaders. Because you can't be running things yourself, right? You want to get people to be taking up over your shoes and then allow us to grow further. So you want people to speak up, encourage them. You want to hear people's opinion as well, because you'll never know that sometimes the best of ideas come from people who are on the ground, people who see things, people who are involved with the customers, for example. So in my place, I'm encouraging people to speak up.
And I think to the point, sometimes you can have toxic environments, toxic culture. So there's also that distinction to know when you're in an environment where it actually is very negative and it's probably not a positive place. So then it's, do I want to remain here or do I want to remove myself if you don't think change is going to come? There was another question from the gentleman here. Is the mic on, please? Thank you.
Check, 1, 2, okay. Sorry. Zaiful from Astro Awani. My question would be, as a leader, how, because a lot of leaders might have their talents under them, right? So from that talents, multiple talents that you have, how do you want to basically foresee and value which one would be the best one that you can raise and make them a great leader? What kind of values that you have to look at? Because over the years you might see different people that comes and work with you. So how do you really look at it and feel that, hey, this is the one that you can push?
Good question.
I think, to be honest, it's not very difficult to see who you can trust, who have the vision to carry things through. Especially, I take my example. When I started the company, I have a bunch of people working around me, so I developed them. Today, almost all of them are in my C-suite. All my CX are over there as well. Why? Because they have been with us throughout the years. We've gone through a lot of together, right? And as you go through this, you can see who have the right conviction, who have the right level of integrity, who you can trust. So it's quite easy to see. And then you encourage them to build more leaders under them as well. So that's how we grow. I think that's the only way that you can grow within an organization. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to bring talent from the outside. So the best talent that you can have is actually talents that you build from inside, who has been with you for a very long time, who understand the core value of the company, who understand the purpose of the organization. In my organization, all my CX suite today are people that has been with me from 6-7 years ago. So they, from rank and file, today they become the CX of the organization as well. And I think how do you spot is through their commitment, through their clarity, because I'm sure every single one of you would have your management meeting on a weekly basis or whatever. You can see from their ideas, from their commitment, and empower them and give them the space to grow. That's at least how we do it in our organization.
So for me, I think talent requirement in a social sector is very tough, because you're face-fronting people, and people are much more vulnerable than you, that you can't afford to be more vulnerable than them. At the same time, talent retention in social sector is even tougher. So if you are fit for the job or no is only through two ways. And I think because almost 90% of my team is seated in this room, and how do we do that? Maybe just to give you an explanation is two approaches. Number one, what we do is we cross-place them. So for example, if you tell me that you do not want to work, for example, with at-risk youths, and you do not want to work with former convicts, that is the place I send you. And that's how we do it. Why? If you tell me that you cannot work with the ladies, because some of them even tell me that they go to bed thinking of them, they get up thinking of them. So, it's that kind of convictions that they give me, right? And that is the right team, I'll place you there. Why? Because then I go back to my second one, which is if you are not passionate about changing them, then the social sector is not the right place for you to be in. And that is the reason why we do that. And most of the time, our recruits are young people. And young people, especially millennials, already come with a plate full of issues to address to you. So what I do in return is, I give them 2 plates more issues, and I tell them to face it. And I think, applause to them, they have been doing it really well, and majority of our beneficiaries are actually managed by millennials. So if you're seeing millennials are very entitled, they're very spoiled, I can tell you, it's in contrary. Today, every one of the ladies actually look up to them to help them to actually change their path in technology.
If I may add to already wonderful answers, just one extra thing. In a not-for-profit world, we look for signals of the person's intention. In a not-for-profit world, it's about the generosity of your heart and what do your actions indicate. Sometimes there are some people who utilize the not-for-profit platform for selfish purposes, and that makes it very difficult to be about the beneficiaries. And so one of the main things that I look for to observe is what does that person's action say? Is it about, thumping their own chest? Or is it about, I'm doing this for everyone else and it's not about me? So that's the main thing I look for.
Any other questions from the floor? There's some two ladies up the front here.
Good afternoon. My name is Wardina Roslin from Petronas. I have two questions here. So leaders are always portrayed as fearless. So what would be your biggest fear in your career until now? And also, what was your most memorable mistake that has shaped you to become who you are today?
So leaders are portrayed to be fearless. So the question is, what is your perhaps biggest fear or fear that you faced, and biggest mistake that you overcame to get you to where you are today?
I like to take that first. In Girls for Girls, we encourage the concept of courageous leadership, which means that courage doesn't always have to roar. Courage can also look and sound like a very small voice that says, you know what, I will try again tomorrow. So it doesn't always have to be fearless and gonna pounce on the next opportunity. No, we're changing that narrative, we're changing that culture, because there are, let's say, 160 people in here. There's 160 different ways to lead. And so we want to make room and encourage all types of leaders. So it's not always fearless. There are many leaders, successful ones out there, who say, you know what? Okay, I failed today, but that's fine. What did I learn from it? Let me try again tomorrow. It's about not falling through the floorboards of life. Sometimes if you can't make it to next week, it's making it to the next day. And sometimes you can't make it to the next day, you make it to the next hour. So I can assure you that a lot of leaders out there, they do it even if they're scared, even if their voice and their knees shake, they still do it. So it's about doing it. And the second question was about
mistake that you've made that you overcame?
Mistake that we made
like a personal mistake that you made and you've overcome it, you learned from it, you grew from it.
Which one? So many. I did not originally come from a not-for-profit background. I came initially I was a genetic engineer, actually, in the US when I first started, and then I got into entrepreneurship and food security. A lot of the mistakes I made, and a huge reason why I started Girls for Girls, was what happened in my 20s, and in terms of poor crisis management. When you're young and things happen and you're drowning in public humiliation and lawsuits and everything, you're drowning. You're in quicksand. You can barely breathe. What more get yourself out of the crisis, right? And I think all of that happened at one time. And I'm so happy to say that now, more than about 2 decades later, today I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I still get invited to speak somewhere. And so, all those things just become lessons. It's kind of like what I answered the lady there earlier. You just have got to learn from the mistakes. And you know what? That's actually why I started Girls for Girls, because when I went through what I did in my early 20s, I didn't have someone to sort of keep me alive and hold my hand and say, hey, you can make it. I really thought I was gone. Mentally, I was gone. Confidence-wise, I was gone. I had nothing. I was ashamed to show my face anywhere. But, 15 years later, here we are. So, inshallah.
We are far more resilient than we think we are.
Yes.
All of us. Gentlemen.
Yeah, I think for an entrepreneurs, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Right? In fact, we learn more from making mistakes rather than from books, from friends, from mentors or whatever. In fact, I always tell my team and people around me as well, you grow just like you play games, right? You come to the level and you have to kill your level boss, then you go to the next level. So if you can't kill your level boss, you keep trying, you may fail, right? You kill level boss, you move to the next level as well. exactly the parable here as well. So if we are facing problem, it means that we are ready to move to the next level. So put in all focus, put in all attention to solve the problem. So celebrate problems. When it comes to you, it tells you that you're ready to move to the next level. At least that's what I tell my people to be, to think about problems.
Kuhan, do you want to quickly jump in?
Now, just to summarize, I think for us, we always say it's not about falling, because I think in an entrepreneurial journey, practically every second you're falling. Because you just have to maneuver that journey. Yeah. But I think it's not about falling, but it's about how fast do you rise from that fall. Even how deep someone sends you in and you fall into a ravine or so, but how fast do you actually recover and move forward? And that's more important. Yeah.
And to add, I think some mistakes, yes, they can be very grave and they can have many severe consequences. But I think for me, the mindset is very different, where it's not even a mistake. It's not even a failure. It's the excitement of trying possibilities and navigating and see how you can do things in different ways. And so that approach, that excitement to what you do, to what you wake up to every morning, it's a very special fire to have within you. So I think maybe we've got a couple more minutes. So final questions, maybe 2 questions. Gentleman and lady here.
Good evening. My name is Casey, and thanks for the sharing just now. My question is regarding the theme today, mentorship, and I would like to ask: there's so many people in the world today that could become our mentors. So how do we choose who to become our mentor? And when we get advice from mentors, how do you, when there's some advice that you prefer not to take in, how do you determine whether you have strong belief in yourself, or you're just being stubborn or delusional or arrogant? Yeah. Thank you.
So on mentorship, how do you find a mentor? And then when mentors give you certain advice,
Yeah.
how do you navigate whether you take it or don't take the advice?
Yeah.
I'll try this one.
How do you find a mentor?
I'm a big believer in ensuring that you take advice and you seek guidance from someone who's living a life you want to lead, whether that is personally or professionally, because what they will share with you is their life experience. And so sometimes be ready and prepared for what kind of mentor you want. I mean, if you're already having this conversation now, and if that's what's on your mind, be aware. Are you looking for someone who's successful in the for-profit world? Are you looking for someone who is a not-for-profit, charity, social enterprise type of person? Those 2 people will give you very different advice to the same question that you have. So you choose the kind of mentor you want based on the life you want to lead in about 10 years' time, right? The decisions you make today will compound and lead you to hopefully a similar life.
The mentorship and how to take their advice. So you kind of answered it with the shared, like similar values.
Similar values. I do have a story to add to that. I have a mentor, and I'm also a bit stubborn, so I had to learn this the hard way. He gave me a piece of advice, what he wanted me to do. But in my heart of hearts, I did not want to do what he advised me. But I was like, oh my God, this is such an amazing mentor. How do I not follow? And it's going to be so obvious if I don't follow or take up the opportunity he told me to take. And I felt so difficult. How do I tell him no? Right? And so I Tai Chi'd my way around and pusing sini, pusing sana. And I nicely delivered the no. Of course, you'll figure out a way. We will have different ways. But what I'm trying to say is that listen to your gut. This was an incident that happened last year, and I felt so bad. I was so scared to see him again because he's like such a big person and spared me that time and gave me an advice, and somehow I didn't take it. But today, 1 year later, I'm so glad that I listened to myself, because in hindsight, when I see how certain things played out, I'm so glad that I stepped away a little bit from that whole scene, quiet the noise, and listened to myself. what is it that I really feel intuitively is right based on that person's advice? They can only give you advice, but you decide to walk that path.
Yeah, that's so good, so good. Gentlemen, want to add anything?
I think for me, I would like to add saying that, I would always say everyone else's shoes is already taken. So you have to have your own path and you have to actually define your own self. And I totally agree as well with Izzana, is that sometimes there's just a lot of noise around, like how you should be and how you should actually act for the society, or how you should actually fit into the society. But sometimes these noises, you have to silence it to hear yourself and how you would want to be. Now, I never had the opportunity of having a single mentor that I would, just guide through. But instead, I would like to believe, personally, I would like to believe that every fragments of myself, every molecules of myself was somehow or rather mentored by the people that I met. For instance, when in my working space, I liked someone in terms the way they delivered a speech, word to word, the way they articulate. Now, how did I get myself mentored? It might be a formal mentoring, it might be informal mentoring, but I made it a point to go for every single speech that he delivered because I could hear how he actually spoke, and that was somehow or other a way to mentor. And recent times also, and the people that we work with, the beneficiaries that we work with, they teach me a lot of things. Like, for instance, now the millennials that I'm working with, they come up with these terms like slur, sway. When I say something and then they go like slur, and I'm like, okay, somehow or other, that is also a mentoring for me on how to face the millennial world, right? So I think these are how fragments of mentoring that I'm taking, I'm absorbing. And I also agree with Izzana is that not everything would fit you. Because, if someone says that, hey, I think you can see the dynamics of all three of us, right? Izzana is more calm and composed, and the way she puts her words together. And I think Dato Kamarul is much more experienced. But I'm a hyper guy, if you give me a stage, I would just drive everyone nuts. But that's what I want to define myself. So once again, it's yourself, it's your shoes. Don't try to fit yourself into another one's shoe, but try to define yourself and your experience.
You're definitely bringing the energy, and I can see you have a great relationship with, I would say millennial, but more Gen Z. And I would also say, no matter who you look up to and admire, mentor or not, no one is infallible. Be very careful of putting people on pedestals, because you often set yourself up for disappointment when they don't live up to your expectation and your definition of them. So that's a very important, I think, experience that many of us, I would say older, wiser, have gone through, and it does hurt. Dato?
Yeah, I would echo what has been said already. When it comes to mentoring, when it comes to ideas, they all are colored by their own personal experience. At the end of the day, your decision is your decision. You can hear out whatever people wanted to say. At the end of the day, it's your decision. You know what is best. Deep in you, you know what is best for you. You get some ideas from others, own up, make your own decision.
Thank you. And our final question for today, can we have it's actually over here. Oh, wait, now there's way more questions than anticipated. Okay, who would like to ask? Yes, over there. Okay.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Anas from Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, ASLI. Thank you so much for the wisdom imparted today. I've definitely learned a lot. My question is, there have been a great emphasis on leaders. A good leader is someone that try to build or create new leaders. And to put on a flip side, for a young upcoming leaders or someone that has just entered the job market, for example, if they get a good leader or someone that a good mentor, then it is good for them. But if they have someone that does not want to empower them, someone that perhaps are toxic, and someone that does not want them to go further in their career, do you have any advice on how can upcoming leaders navigate their journey? And disclaimer, I'm not talking about my boss. This is live, right? Yeah. Okay.
And maybe just to add on to the question, with new people newly entering the workforce, a lot of that is, to his question, wrapped up in I don't like this, it doesn't suit my style, and how am I going to fit into my vibe, and the list goes on. So what is the mindset also of when you're entering the workforce? If your boss asks you to make coffee, then how are you going to resign and not turn up tomorrow? So being realistic, what should the person, how should they present themselves as well, right?
So actually, the first thing I thought was, I think I needed to call Daniel Abdul Rahman and check what did he just do to his staff, right? That's the CEO of Asli, by the way. But then that's good that you said towards the end it's not him. But I think, this is just one advice that I got, right? I joined the workforce right after graduation about a decade ago, though I'm still in my 20s. I believe so. Okay? But one thing that my boss told me at that time, he said that if you are required to do a photocopy of a document, do it. But how you do it is in your own style. Now, I never knew that meaning because why? He used to get me to buy KFC for him. And he used to ask me to stay up after 8 p.m., right? But then he told me one thing. He said, when I ask you to photocopy, because you are now given the opportunity to photocopy a document, what do? You take it and go and put it in the photocopier machine, photocopy and come and give it to him back. And he said, that's not what I intended you to do. I actually gave you this document, and this document is a private and confidential document. What you should have done is, you should have taken the time to read the document. You see, so it's not about just that, right? It's like the same thing he says. Like, for example, today I know a lot of young people say that when the first time I get into my job, even just recently we had an intern, and the first thing they gave him at work was to go and take photographs using his phone. But then again, if you take on the other lens, the work that he's given is actually to take photograph of a critical meeting. Now that meeting, even some of the leaders do not get an opportunity to sit in. And he is now given that opportunity to sit in on his day one to actually listen. So many of these are actually the way you view it as well. And some people always say, my first day of job, my boss got me to make coffee. The good thing is now that you have, the only way is to reach your heart, your boss's heart is through coffee. So
sure, it tastes very good too.
Yeah, and the next thing you can get things done faster, right? But back to the point that you brought up, if you were to enter and if someone is not empowering you, and I always get these questions from young people, right? What do we do if someone is not, not allowing you? Now, I would never tell you to drop the mic and just walk off. Because why? I will tell that person that if you just entered the workforce, that is an experience you need. Because not every experience is a bed of roses. Now, if someone is not empowering you to be a leader, that is an experience itself. Because one day when you become a leader, you will remember not to repeat that mistake. So I will not tell someone to straight away say that drop the mic and walk out. No, if you're just there, at least take a year, go through the entire process, learn what you need to learn, because those negative ones you will always remember not to repeat as a young leader in future. And those positive ones is your key takeaways.
Well said. Any add-ons?
It's all part of character building. You join on an organization, you do it all, you learn, you go through things. Just do it. You will probably do the same to your future employee, future subordinate as well, right? So, but it's part of the fun, really. I make coffee for my bosses. I was asked to go out and buy magazine for my bosses, buy sandwiches in London. So what, right? It's part of your character building, and you build a relationship with your bosses, and you will do the same to your future subordinates as well in the future.
I think if I could add, consider thinking to the finish as well. Because you've already signed the contract, and if it's your first job and you bounce in 3 months, what would that look like if you think to the finish to your next employer? When they look at your CV and you're 3 months here, 4 months there, 2 months there, what is the summary of you as a person? Then your future employer may think, hey, this person doesn't have the grit and resilience to hack it if I were to bring you or whoever it is in. So, because I deal with a lot of Gen Zs actually, and I find that the work culture is something that needs to be experienced precisely for the reasons the two gentlemen had already mentioned. So I would really encourage thinking to the finish, bird's eye view of what would your CV or your character look like in that one-page document that you send out to future HR or future bosses.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dato Kamarul, Kuhan, and Izzana. And thank you for your questions, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's been, I mean, I'm not going to attempt to summarize the past 1.5 hours, but, I just think the three of you sitting on this stage today, you epitomize good leadership for many reasons, the ability to take risk, to be courageous, to, you epitomize what you want people to become. You lead through example, and what I think, to always be teachable, I think that's another one, to always want to learn, to see it as a journey. Life and leadership, I think, go hand in hand. How you present at work, how you present at home, and in different aspects of your life matter. So thank you so much for being here today, for being very honest and real with the audience. I was gonna close by asking, are you hopeful about ... But I feel like all three of you have answered that question to an extent. So a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our three panelists today.